At 5:30 a.m. the world looked ordinary. The ocean wore a silver ribbon of light. On the private balcony of cabin B, a young woman sat alone, listening to music, her bare feet folded beneath her. 1 hour later, nothing. No clothes disturbed. No note. No splash heard. Just an empty sea where a life had once been. Her name was Amy Lynn Bradley. She was 23. And the next 27 years would be a search for answers that never came. Please help this channel grow, like the video, try the new hype feature, leave a comment and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. Amy Lynn Bradley was born in 1974 and grew up in Virginia. She was athletic, upbeat and close-knit with her family, her parents Ron and Iva Bradley, and her younger brother, Brad. A recent college graduate from Longwood College, Amy loved music and basketball and had the easy confidence of someone who trusted their next step. They booked a 7-day Caribbean cruise, a family holiday meant to celebrate, to relax, to make memories. The ship, Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas, a floating city of lights, music and thousands of strangers. Over 2,000 passengers and hundreds of crew members filled its decks. The itinerary included stops in Curaçao and other Caribbean ports. By the third night, the Bradleys had settled into pattern. Shows after dinner, a late walk on deck, laughing about bad jokes and the indulgence of a shared holiday. For strangers, it would be just another evening. For the Bradleys, nothing would ever be the same. Amy Bradley, young, social, last seen on her cabin balcony. Ron and Iva Bradley, parents who would never stop searching. Brad, brother, last person to speak with Amy before her final night out. Crew and band members, dozens of faces. One bass player would later be nicknamed in media reports as Yellow, seen dancing that night. Royal Caribbean, ship operator with protocols, security footage, and decisions that would be scrutinized. March 23, the ship's nightclub pulses with music. Lights rotate. Couples dance. Friends grin into cocktails. Amy and her brother Brad step into that crowd. They dance. They meet people. Amy talks to members of the ship's band. She's photographed laughing, joyous in the warm glow of the stage lights. Amy told Brad she would return to the cabin later. He left the club around 1 a.m., the last known person to speak with her willingly that night. This is where public memory splits into two streams. The verified who saw Amy, when and where, and the unverifiable rumors and later alleged sightings that will complicate every attempt to build certainty. The nightclub winds down. Crew begin minor cleanups. Many passengers are asleep. Others are scattered across decks, some watching the moonlit sea, some in cabins with balcony doors open to the salt air. Amy returns to the family cabin. She is barefoot. She sits on the balcony alone, listening to music through headphones. She talks with her father briefly. Ron wakes, exchanges a small conversation and then goes back to sleep. She looked fine, Ron would later say. She was just out there listening to music. It is a small, ordinary confirmation, a single moment that becomes the last verified interaction. Passengers drift in and out of sleep. Crew move quietly. The ship hums with refrigeration units and sea noise. For 2 hours, nothing extraordinary is reported. No alarms. No calls for help. No shouting. The horizon begins to blanch. The ship approaches Curaçao. Service staff make preparations for morning routines. A few passengers wake early to catch the sunrise. Somewhere in the cabin, a balcony door is open. Ron wakes and notices the balcony door is open. He looks out. Amy is gone. He sees her cigarettes and lighter inside the cabin, still where she left them. He calls out for her. He wakes Iva and Brad. The family begins a frantic search. In the first minutes after someone disappears, instinct is to search nearby places first. The bed, the bathroom, the hallways, the pools. The Bradley family did exactly that. Cruise ship staff initiate an onboard search, a standard emergency protocol often referred to as a Charlie drill. Crew search cabins, public areas, crew quarters deck by deck. Security checks cameras where available. Officers speak briefly with the family to gather a timeline. The ship continues to its scheduled port call. It would dock in Curaçao later that morning, allowing thousands of passengers to disembark. In the confusion of thousands of people disembarking and port staff moving about, opportunities to spot or remove someone if that had occurred multiply. This sequence of normal operations would later be criticized by the family. Could the ship have paused? Could disembarkation have been delayed to help a search? The company maintained their actions were consistent with standard protocol. The family believed more could have been done. Investigators and family begin to consider multiple scenarios. An accidental fall remains a possibility, but troubling inconsistencies quickly emerge. Amy was familiar with water, railings were not low, and no one reported a splash. Suicide lacks motive or corroborating evidence. That narrows the arc toward more sinister possibilities. Now we examine witness statements, reported sightings, and the people who intersected with her in those hours. Affirmed Amy was stable, had plans, and was last seen on the balcony. They initiated the search and became the case's most persistent advocates. Security staff and crew conducted the initial sweep and recall seeing no signs of forced entry or struggle in the cabin. Some crew later expressed frustration at how quickly routines restarted. Members of the ship's band danced with Amy that night. One member, a bass player later identified in media as a person of interest by some, was questioned. He denies involvement. Over the subsequent days and months, multiple alleged sightings trickled in. A report from a U.S. sailor suggested a woman claiming to be Amy sought help in a Curaçao establishment months later. Photographs circulating years after the disappearance prompted painful speculation. None of these sightings were confirmed. None produced a chain of custody or corroborating identification. Yet each claim forced the Bradley family back into hope, a dangerous, necessary thing that kept the search alive. The ship's security logs were reviewed. Crew were interviewed. Shipping manifests and passenger lists were examined. Authorities collected statements from passengers who had been on the club deck, in the corridors, and those who saw Amy near the balcony. Cruise ships in the 1990s had limited CCTV coverage compared with today. Footage was not always recorded or preserved. Some footage that could have been useful was reportedly missing or inconclusive. Local police and the U.S. Coast Guard joined the search off Curaçao. Sea and air searches combed the waters. Divers checked possible drift patterns. Yet the ocean is vast and forgiving of secrets. After days of search, no physical evidence was found. A body's recovery in open ocean depends on weather, currents, decompositional factors, and time. Without a clear point of entry or witnesses, the scientific challenge is immense. Detectives reconstructed a timeline of Amy's last known movements using interviews with family, band members, bar staff, and other passengers. Small discrepancies appeared, a cigarette said to be left in one place, another witness saying they saw Amy head toward a different deck at a different time. Investigators had to weigh human memory against the passage of time. Human recollection frays quickly, especially with large crowds and late hours. Witnesses sometimes confided in reporters rather than investigators, complicating verification. Given Amy's disappearance near port cities known to have trafficking problems, investigators considered the possibility she was taken off the ship and moved ashore. Human trafficking is a real and horrific industry in many regions, opportunistic, often invisible, and sometimes achieved through coercion aboard ships. But proving such a transfer requires corroboration, a reliable sighting, camera footage, or a rescued victim's account. The alleged brothel sighting in Curaçao, the report from a U.S. serviceman that a woman claiming to be Amy appeared in a local establishment remained unverified and contested. Amy's family went on TV shows like Unsolved Mysteries and appealed to the public. They offered rewards totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars for information. Media attention brought tips, some credible, many not. False leads and hoaxes are sadly common in high-profile missing person cases. But media attention also kept pressure on authorities to continue the investigation, and on families to keep their hopes alive. The Bradleys became public advocates for their daughter, refusing to accept a simple closed file. The case eventually drew federal attention. The FBI reviewed evidence, followed up on tips, and kept Amy listed on their missing persons registry. Over time, however, leads dried and active public updates were sporadic. Legal actions. The family filed suit against the cruise line at one point, claiming negligence. The suit was ultimately dismissed. No criminal charges were filed as a result of the vessel's operation. If we line up the known facts, last verified sighting on the balcony, cigarette and shoes left behind, shipboard search turned up empty, dock in Curaçao later that morning, and then layer on reported sightings and unverified photos, we inhabit an uneasy space between probability and possibility. It's possible on any ship. Amy was comfortable with water. No splash reported, tragic but conceivable. Amy's friends and family insist she had plans and no history of suicidal ideation. No note, ship is a confined ecosystem, a taker could operate amid crowds, no eyewitness has provided proof. No confession, there are patterns of exploitation near port cities. Alleged sightings in Curaçao suggest this line of inquiry. No chain of custody or confirmed recovery. Allegations remained unproven. Every theory carries emotional weight. the family's grief, the public's fascination, and the investigator's burden to follow each lead without bias. A recurring theme is corporate responsibility. Cruise ships are private spaces that operate under complex international rules. When a passenger disappears, decisions about search procedures, whether to delay disembarkation, and how to communicate with law enforcement become technically and ethically loaded. The Bradleys and some investigators would argue that the company did not do enough in those first crucial hours. The cruise line maintained it followed protocols. In subsequent years, the industry tightened some security measures, increased CCTV coverage, and revised emergency response protocols, changes that likely would improve odds today compared to 1998. No arrest. No conviction. The family pursued civil action that did not result in legal damages. In 2010, Amy was declared legally dead. Yet the legal status does not equate to truth. Her name remains on missing persons lists, and the case is catalogued among unsolved maritime disappearances. Ron and Iva Bradley never ceased to seek answers. They held press conferences, participated in TV appeals, and placed public rewards for information. The disappearance changed the arc of their lives. Ordinary evenings turned into a relentless pursuit for a return that never came. Over the years, Amy's disappearance has been covered in numerous true crime shows and documentaries. Every re-examination brings both fresh scrutiny and renewed pain for the family. Media can spur new tips, but it can also create noise, rumors, and false leads that roil investigators and waste resources. When new documentary pieces emerged years later, public curiosity reignited. A younger generation, fascinated by cold cases and digitized evidence, started combing old materials and digital archives, sometimes turning up small details overlooked in earlier probes. We return to the moment on the balcony, a young woman with headphones on, listening to music as the ocean slid by. That image, ordinary and intimate, is what makes the disappearance so cruel. It interrupts the small, private rituals of a life and leaves an echo that outlasts time. What happened between 3:30 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. on that quiet sea? We do not know. There are hypotheses, shards of memory, alleged sightings, and a family who refused to surrender to the finality of a missing body. The ocean, for all its beauty, can hide more than it reveals. If there is a single truth to take from Amy's story, it is this. When a person vanishes into the machinery of modern travel, in a port, on a ship, in a crowd, the search becomes as much about memory and responsibility as it is about evidence. This case remains open in the hearts of those who love her, and open in the files of agencies that continue to catalog tips. The story is unfinished. The questions echo. If you have information, however small or old, contact the authorities. Sometimes the quietest detail breaks a case. Sometimes the smallest witness supplies the missing piece.